Hey everybody, Foley here. Welcome to the weekly news recap for the 2nd to the 8th of February 2026. So this week, Nintendo had Nintendo Direct that was focusing on third-party games coming to the platform soon this year. First one up is Orbitals. We're not going to go through all of the games they announced because the vast majority of them were ports, but this one is a new game. And it does look like it is exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2 specifically. Orbitals is, as you can see, kind of taking the stylings of like 80s anime, but it also plays a little bit like Hazelight's games, like their co-op games. It Takes Two, Split Fiction, that kind of thing. They did mention in this trailer that if one of you owns the game, then two people can play. With Nintendo's share thing. So again, like Hazelight, if one of you owns it, then both of you can play it kind of thing. And yeah, it looks pretty good. I really like the art style that they're going for here. It just looks really nice, and they've done a great job of kind of animating it in a way that like it kind of looks like it's anime, or like animated frame rate, like 20 something frames on the characters, but the game itself plays on a much higher frame rate. It's really interesting the way they've made that work. I think this trailer gave it a release date. I think it's early this year. I don't know, summer. So not release date, release window at best. And next up, The Adventures of Elliot, The Millennium Tales. I talked about this in my Games of 2026. I was actually going to put Orbitals on it as well, but I wasn't sure about its release date. But anyway, again, this trailer kind of showing off that you'll be jumping to a lot of different time periods, and kind of showing off the gameplay, that there is a little bit of like cooperative stuff. If you want to, a second player can play as the Navi, if you like, the fairy that's following you around. They have different abilities than the main character, although it does feel like it's more of a, the way like some of the Super Mario games have a second person can play it, and the gameplay's a little bit easier for them. That's what it kind of feels like. Again, gorgeous art style. Story is not immediately clear. There is some kind of time traveling thing going on. And you might be going back in time to bring things forward into your time period, and how exactly that affects history or something like that. This, I think, is actually out pretty soon. I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit. If you want to watch the full trailer, it's on YouTube. Never mind. It's actually quite a while away. It's summer. It looks like Orbitals and this might be out in and around the same time. Okay, next up, not a new game necessarily or new announcement, but I think this is the first time we've seen actually gameplay of Turok Evolution. Now, from the looks of it, it's kind of what I said when the game was announced, that they're probably going to do Space Marines, but make it Turok. It does kind of feel like that's what they're going for. We obviously don't have the like massive hordes of Tyranids that like Space Marine had. Like, it's clear they're going for like bigger enemies maybe, or like more like difficult creatures and kind of thing. Like, we're not seeing them fighting multiple enemies at once, is my point. We're kind of only really seeing them fighting like one or two enemies at most at the same time. And it does look like it is a 3-player game, but you can play it solo. It's not clear if solo means you have two computer controlled NPCs with you, or if you really are all by yourself. Not clear. It looks okay. To be honest, it looks kind of ropey. And I was never a massive Turok fan in the first place. I didn't own an N64, so I never really got in on it. But I think that's the first time we've seen actual gameplay. And like, it looks fine. That's about the best I could say. And I did mention most of the things that were showing off were ports. There's a little bit of new gameplay here, I think, of Resident Evil Requiem. I am, however, going to skip to one very specific part of the trailer, because Nintendo, being somewhat family friendly, not even somewhat family friendly, very family friendly, they're very against showing gore in their Nintendo Directs and stuff like that. So the way they've avoided showing gore in this is fucking hilarious. They just have whoever's playing the game be extremely shit at the game, which is very funny. So I'm going to skip because it's very obvious in Leon's section that they're purposely avoiding hitting anybody. Right? Pull away. The guy fucking misses deliberately. Misses his shot here. Picks up the chainsaw and then fucking whiffs the attack massively. Whiffs this guy somehow, cuts off on the axe attack, cuts off immediately there. Like, it's very funny that they're just, like deliberately avoiding the gore. Like, I do think it's very funny, even though it's Resident Evil is what you're showing off. It's a horror game that it's not like it's very gory or anything, but they are quite clearly trying to avoid it to keep the age rating down for an internet video, which is a bit strange. Anyway. That was the Nintendo Direct. As I said, it was mostly ports, lots of ports of games that are already coming to other platforms. The games that kind of stood out to me that we didn't already know of were Orbitals and the Millennium Tales. And again, as I said, Turok Evolution or Turok Origins. I don't think we had seen gameplay before, so that was good to see. I think there were some other games shown off, but they didn't they didn't look very good. Anyway, there's one that's like a stealth dinosaur thing that looks so shit. Anyway, we'll move on. Outside of that, speaking of looking shit, Sony decided to just randomly drop a new game coming from Guerrilla and didn't save it for the state of play that's this week. Decided to put it out ahead of time, probably because they knew the reaction it was going to get. So this is Horizon Hunters Gathering. Why they didn't call them Hunter Gatherers, I don't know. That would have made a bit more sense, but anyway. This is a 3-person... It's kind of Night Rain, I suppose. It's like Horizon Night Rain in some ways. And then maybe like a little bit Destiny in some areas as well. So there's 6 characters, I think, that they're showing off. 3 of them will be available in the... beta. None of them are Aloy. You got this guy. He's a bow dude. You've got this kind of invisible ninja lady who I think has one of the machines is a friend of hers or something. Got a staff person. That guy, I don't know what he does. This guy, I've never played Horizon, but apparently he's a character from the game. There's a lot of people doing the DreamWorks smirk. Like, basically everybody does the DreamWorks smirk at least once. Some of them do it multiple times. It's not great. Anyway, gameplay. We're going to skip ahead to when they actually show off some gameplay of the actual video game. So it is 3-person. Again, if you go into it solo, you'll have 2 NPCs following you. And honestly, I thought they were going to go down like Monster Hunter. I figured they would do like a Monster Hunter thing of Horizon and, defeat the machine, strip it for parts, turn it into armor, turn it into weaponry, like that kind of thing. And I feel like that kind of loop would make sense. But that's not really what it is. It's kind of a... So they're showing off 2 different gameplay modes. This first one here is more of Night Rain. There's lots of different activities or different enemies dotted around the map, and the map itself gets smaller over time. And the enemies you defeat drop different items, and it has a little bit of a roguelike element to it. They have a name for it as well. I forget what it's called. It's Machine Incursion or something like that. But that's the idea, is that you defeat enemies, and then there's like one massive enemy at the end or something like that. Which is very Night Rain. The Night Lord or whatever, I think is the end of Elden Ring Night Rain. And that's kind of the gist of that version of it. I don't know how much of it you carry over in between rounds and what have you. The second one is a little bit more of a puzzle, or not puzzle, more of a dungeon thing. Yeah, Machine Incursion is that thing. Cauldron Descent. Again, never played Horizon, not sure what the Cauldron is. I imagine it's where the machines are made or something. This is really more of a dungeon crawl. You go down different levels of the dungeon, and every time you complete a level, you get upgrades. It's very much like a streamlined version of Night Rain, just without the big map. It's just a more condensed thing, and maybe it's a faster run, more difficult enemies. I don't know. Maybe it has a longer play to it. Either way, who is this for? Like, Horizon fans, right, would have been more into the single player game with the very high fidelity graphic style instead of the stylistic thing. Now, clearly they're going for stylistic because it has to be online, and trying to do high fidelity and do an online game at the same time would not really work out well for them. But this is the second kind of live service Horizon game now. We've had this, and then there's Horizon Steel Frontiers, which is a mobile game. And kind of looking at the two of them, it's a bit... I kind of feel like they have them the wrong way around. I kind of feel like this should be the mobile game, and Steel Frontiers should be the console game. Or really, they should just both be console games. And mobile, if they can pull it off, I suppose. But it's a bit odd. And probably more frustrating is... I mean, for fans of Horizon, the more frustrating thing is that Horizon 3 is delayed because they're working on this. And you got to remember that when you have a live service game, you don't really stop developing the game. There's always going to have to be some amount of people working on it indefinitely, or until it flops, I suppose. And then how many of those people are core to the Horizon development team, so they won't be available for Horizon 3, or are you going to take all of the people who are core to the Horizon team, and then you only have people who are maybe not as strong developers who are left on this game, or who even want to still be left on this game. Anyway, like, that is frustrating. It is like also frustrating because I want more Killzone, to be honest. But what I really want is something new. And this really does feel like this game exists already. And they're putting out yet another live service game in a market that is rejecting them. Anyway, we're going to move on. It being the start of the month, there are the Xbox Game Pass has refreshed. So, first half of February, we have Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, follows Majima, who wakes up in Hawaii, has amnesia, decides to become a pirate. Madden, football, whatever. Again, Paw Patrol, who cares? Reloaded is a new game. This is kind of a stealth planning game. The idea is you are retrieving artifacts from your country that were stolen and are now in a museum, and you're basically stealing them back. Star Sand Island, I think this is an early access kind of thing. I'm not sure. But Star Sand Island is a bit Animal Crossing, a bit Stardew Valley. Entropy Effect is a BlazBlue PvE type game, which is honestly not unlike what we just saw with Horizon. Roadside Research is the gas petrol station simulator, but you're aliens and trying to not be caught by the Men in Black. High on Life 2, the thing from the Rick and Morty guy, the sequel. Kingdom Come Deliverance, a lot of people like it. I find it too clunky, but it's a first-person medieval peasant simulator, effectively. Avatar's Frontiers of Pandora, first-person shooter, based in the Avatar universe, but not the Avatar you want to play, the other one. And then Avowed is the latest thing from Obsidian that is a little bit Skyrim. Not quite. It's okay. Then over on the Epic Games Store, the free game this week is Botany Manor. It's kind of a puzzle game where you've inherited, I think, this estate, and you're basically going through it and finding out that there are all sorts of very strange plants the former owner was looking after, and it's basically your task now to make sure they all bloom. So it's kind of a puzzle game with a botany flavor to it. Those are some of the games you can play soon. What if you wanted to play something right now? Well, you can play, and judging by the Steam concurrent users, a lot of you are playing Neo 3. So this is the third game in the Neo series. Team Ninja took a break to do Wolong for a bit, and now they're back to do Neo. And it seems like they took a break so that they could make the game fucking enormous. Excuse me. So they're taking kind of the Elden Ring approach of having a really, really big map and then having kind of dungeons dotted around in it. So like the more classic Neo 2 levels will instead be dungeons you can drop into on the map, but then there's still like a big overworld map. And just because it seems to be the style of the time, there's also time travel. So you're going back in time, trying to undo something the evil Shogun is doing in your own timeline and basically trying to stop that from happening. Something, I don't know. You're going to die a lot because it's one of those hard Souls games. Anyway, it's Neo 3. Again, was also a game of 2026 that I had on my list. You should really watch that video. Anyway, Dragon Quest VII reimagined. So this is a remake of Dragon Quest VII, which is considered one of the better Dragon Quests. I personally would prefer a remake of 8, or not even a remake of 8, just fucking make it available to play that isn't on a fucking phone. Anyway, it looks really good. It's a really impressive update to the game. One point of contention I've seen some from reviewers and fans is that it cuts out a lot of content from the original game. This is content that was deemed kind of bloat by the director, by the creators and stuff like that. They decided to take it out. I will point out the original game still exists. So if you want to, you can always still do that, but I do get the frustration that maybe some people didn't see it as bloat. Maybe some people saw it as actual fun gameplay. Who knows? Difficult to it's difficult to please everybody, I guess. But the most I've seen from reviews though are that it's good. It's a good JRPG. It was always a good JRPG, and now it's still a very good JRPG. Anyway, and the last one, somewhat stealth release, because I kind of thought this would be much later in the year. So Hermit and Pig is what it sounds like. You play a hermit, you have a friendly pig. You do very strange adventure games together. It is very much a comedy thing. Lots of different kind of gameplay elements all pulled together. But yeah, it's very much a kind of funny experience. What the actual story is, I don't know. I think the idea is Hermit is he has to go to town or something to collect something. But it's a little bit of it's a fucking cartoon called Rocko's Modern Life, where he thinks everything is evil outside of his hermitage. I don't know. I actually don't know what the story is. That could be all bullshit. Either way, you can see it's got kind of a adventure game vibe to it. There's a little bit of like a JRPG thing to it, and you've also got this weird like social combat, I guess. But yeah, it looks very silly. And plus they give the pig a hat. So, I mean, that's pretty great. Anyway, that's Hermit and Pig. As far as I know, that is PC only. Unfortunately, though, it is now time to talk about the worst part of video games. Video game industry. So, developer behind Kickstarter's most successful MMO reportedly loses management and staff following troubled launch. So this is Intrepid Studios. They had Ashes of Creation up on Kickstarter in around 2017. Made a little bit more than $3 million in their Kickstarter round. Then kind of disappeared over COVID, trying to get the game made effectively and developed, and then dropped it onto early access like very late last year. December, I think. Yeah, December of last year. Mixed reviews, complaints of bugs, performance issues, whatever. It's a new game and it's an MMO from a small team. This was going to happen. What was not really expected to happen, however, is at the end of last month, community lead Margaret Cron revealed that she and all of the dev team had been laid off. The studio founder, Stephen Shariff, who is also creative director, popped up on LinkedIn to sort of clarify, and didn't really clarify, to be honest. Control of the company shifted away from me, and the board in capital B, began directing actions that I could not ethically agree with or carry out. Now, why a private company has a board? That's a bit weird, but okay. As a result, I chose to resign in protest rather than lend my name or authority to decisions I could not ethically support. Following my resignation, much of the senior leadership team resigned. Following those departures, the board made the decision to issue WARN Act notices and proceed with mass layoffs. So the WARN Act, if you're not familiar, is I think it's US, California, where they have to basically notify employees that they're going to be laid off like significantly in advance of the layoffs, so they have time to do something about it. Imagine doing something nice for labor. Who knows? Anyway, I cannot responsibly speak to further details at this time due to ongoing legal and governance matters. What I can say is that the developers and staff acted in good faith, deserve better than the uncertainty they are now facing. I'm incredibly dismayed by the situation. So there was a lot of speculation around this, that maybe there was a hostile takeover, maybe there was shenanigans from Sheriff himself. There's terms of acquisition somewhere in the Kickstarter that if the game never made it to Steam, people would get their money back, and the game has made it to Steam technically and is now maybe being shut down like a month afterwards. So this financial shenanigans maybe there. It has come to news. I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing, but this week it seems to have been confirmed that the entire studio is actually being shut down and the game itself is being shut down. I haven't checked that yet. As far as I've gotten in the story, the story in the news. This is as far as I've gotten. I've only read the headline that says that the whole studio is going to be shut down. I don't know how true that is. I have to read the article myself. You'll find out on the next week's thing. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of finding out on the next week's... No, that's not a segue. Anyway, Valve reassessing Steam machine pricing due to memory and storage shortages. If you don't hate generative AI yet, I really feel like this should probably do it. Anyway, so they announced the Steam machine, which is effectively going to be a Steam PC. Oh, we're trying this again. A controller, a VR headset, like a whole ecosystem of effectively a PC that lives in your sitting room. And they announced that end of last year, was meant to be, and is still allegedly going to be released at some point in the first half of this year. But we would have expected pricing by now. And a lot of people were assuming, just from the specs alone, it's like a pretty high-end PC. Like, this is going to be pretty expensive. But now that we know that RAM is at a premium because generative AI companies are buying up all of the stock, that NVIDIA doesn't actually see PC gaming as its market anymore. It sees generative AI as its market. It means it's not really making any more gaming GPUs. In fact, it's bringing back old GPUs and charging modern prices for them, which is a bit disgusting. Anyway, the reason we haven't got a price for the Steam machine is because Valve hasn't decided on it yet. Valve revealed that industry-wide memory and storage shortages and rising memory prices have forced it to revisit its shipping schedule and pricing. So this is coming from the generative AI thing. GPUs are being bought and shoved into data centers. Some of them are being bought that haven't even been built yet. Whether that is just going to be heavy debt that's written off, I don't know. The big fucking hammer blow is coming for the industry pretty soon. People are buying things that don't exist. Our goal of shipping all 3 products in the first half of the year has not changed, but we have work to do to land on concrete pricing and launch dates that we can confidently announce. Valve revealed some of the components. So the hard drive and the memory, the RAM will be upgradable. So like potentially they might go for a cheaper hard drive and RAM for the Steam machine, with the assumption that people who are really into it can upgrade it. And that might bring down the price of the initial Steam machine, of the stock version, we'll say. I guess they're really just deciding, can we take a hit? Like, a lot of console manufacturers will sell their consoles at a loss, with the assumption that the software will make up for it. Sony sells PlayStation 5 not anymore. I feel like they don't anymore. But certainly initially, things like the PS2, things like the original Xbox 360, different consoles, were sold at a loss, with the assumption that more people would buy it if it was cheaper, and then we can sell them the software and we get a cut of the software. So facto, we make more money. They're already effectively, if you're going to buy a Steam machine, the idea is you're already a Steam customer, pretty much. I think that would be the idea. That's not to say that you wouldn't get people looking at this going, oh, a PC. They have way more games available. And it's technically also like a workable PC. Like, I don't even necessarily have to use it for video games. I just use it as a cheaper PC or something. Maybe. But yeah, like the reason we haven't seen prices is because I really do feel like some people are waiting for those prices to come down, and I don't think they're coming down. Not anytime soon, anyway. Moving on. So some news from last week. I'm just basically getting some updates. So Ubisoft, this is on the back of a bunch of strikes that Ubisoft unions held last week. Ubisoft held an internal town hall that basically didn't answer any questions. So they held an internal town hall Q&A with employees. This was meant to instill confidence in the company's upcoming changes, but speaking to people who were there, it appears to have had the opposite effect. Employees described the town hall as an expert class in avoiding questions, executives repeatedly sidestepping and recycling earlier statements. So they basically didn't answer any of the questions, even though it was a Q&A session. Okay. 300 questions were submitted. Many of them had like several hundred upvotes. And it was noted by the people there that this was like a significantly higher engagement than past Q&A calls, which suggests people are really, really, really concerned. When asked why they felt that this number was so much higher than usual, they pointed to frustration, anger, betrayal. Employees felt from the current announcement. Questions that had the most upvotes was around the return to office thing. And it was basically what I was saying last week, which was, where is your data? Where is your proof that says return to office increases productivity? And that was effectively their question, whether Ubisoft has any actual data to support the claim that productivity and collaboration have increased since the 3-day RTO was there. And the answer was, we don't have any. What we hear internally and externally is that when it comes to creative, as a noun, apparently, the more people that are present together, the more all of those things we mentioned earlier improve from a collective perspective. The more people that are present, the more it improves. If you get 2 people in a room together, you can get some good like creativity coming out of 3 people, 4 people. You hit like 6,000 people, you're getting nothing. Absolutely nothing. There is a concept of too many chefs. It is a thing. So no, the more people that are present together, not the more you get. The more you get bullshit, basically. But again, they didn't point to any data. What we hear from who? Both internally and externally. Well, if you have internally, you should be able to point to them. Who? They didn't say. We'll talk then about recent cost-cutting measures that could see a reduction of 2,000 plus jobs. They basically said, no, we're not going to cut jobs. Even though we definitely are. We, Ubisoft, should expect our headcount in March to be significantly lower than it was in September. This is what they said in their financial results of last year, May's financial results. But they're trying to claim that, no, there won't be layoffs. Okay. They're acknowledging that most employees learn about many of the upcoming changes from media reports. They try to basically downplay this and say that they have a duty to investors to not reveal that information before the market has heard about it, which I think is bullshit. Anyway, we heard you. In the future, we will attach the press release with an internal email so that you get all of the information at the same time of media and investors. No, I am a fucking employee. I should be hearing about this before everybody else. We have disclosure duties with our investors, which means in concrete terms that we cannot share anything that is sensitive internally at large before updating the market on these very elements. It's bullshit. Anyway. And then we're coming down to the question basically of, you have extracted all of the best performing IPs into one creative house. Are you going to sell that creative house? Now, this was asked slightly differently. This was asked if like a creative house is no longer profitable, are you just going to sell it off? And is this just a packaged way for you to do this easily? And the answer is yes. Anyway, so selling a house will be a possibility, but it shouldn't be the first route to work on. If we open the perspective and the options, if we find a powerful and motivated partner and we agree on long-term vision, and it comes with an important cash injection, fuck you, pay me, with the force to invest in the future of the brands, if this is good for the house or Ubisoft, it is something to consider. So yes, basically. The creative houses are very much a convenient way for somebody to buy a specific part of Ubisoft. Anyway, the town hall did very little to reassure them about the future. I'm shocked. Anyway, many of the critical questions were dismissed, danced around, and did little to ease the feeling that the company faces uncertain times. Anyway, speaking of uncertain times, for one employee anyway, Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed dev fired less than 2 weeks after criticizing the company's plans to end work from home. So we talked about this last week. David Michaud-Cromp was talking about the return to office mandate and saying that it was bullshit and we all know why you're really doing that. And then he linked to a video about corporate building rent and this kind of stuff. And at the time, he was suspended. Pending, I guess, review. For a, what was it again? A duty of loyalty. Yes, he did not uphold his duty of loyalty to the company who wants to fuck him over and all of his colleagues. Yes, it's funny how the duty of loyalty doesn't go the other way around. Anyway. Today I was terminated by Ubisoft, effective immediately. This was not my decision. I won't be discussing internal details or circumstances. I'm taking time to regroup and we'll share next steps when appropriate. But yeah, like the rest of this is just detailing what happened. What we already talked about. And, you know, nuance. A little bit of nuance in that he wasn't necessarily against return to office. It was just, it should be for very specific scenarios and situations. It shouldn't just be a blanket everybody get back in the office. It should be a, hey, we're having a brainstorming session, or hey, we need to discuss such and such with a bunch of these people and it's easier if we're all in the same room. This kind of stuff. Not just, hey, come into the office and do what you were already doing at home, but now do it uncomfortable in an open plan environment. Anyway, we're not done. We're not done about criticizing Ubisoft though. Prince of Persia creator shares his sympathies with the Sands of Time remake devs. So this is Jordan Mechner, creator of the original Prince of Persia, the original side-scrolling one. Anyway, it's basically saying that shit sucks. He was looking forward to the game and is sympathetic towards developers who put a lot of work into the game, and it is very frustrating to have a lot of work that you like pour your heart into and try to do your best work on it and want to show it off to everybody what you've been working on for 4 or 5 years. And it just gets fucking shit canned. And in the case of the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake, it seemed like it was pretty close to finish. Like they had even started making like the collector's edition physical shit. Like there was a dagger, I think, you could get as part of like a collector's thing. It's like clearly they were somewhat expecting the game to release and then didn't. Anyway, the remake's cancellation as part of Ubisoft's restructuring was disappointing news to all fans who'd been eagerly awaiting it, myself included. My sympathy goes to the development team in Montreal. I can only imagine how they must feel. Having a project killed is a brutal experience. It's an aspect of the game industry that the public doesn't often see, but developers are all too familiar with. It's tough to suddenly absorb that the past 4 years of hard work you were proud of and looking forward to seeing out in the world as your new calling card will now never see daylight. Words like loss and grieving might seem exaggerated, but artists put their hearts into their work. If they remember that, if you've been working on this game for, 4 years, 5 years, and it never gets released, that's now effectively your 4 or 5 year gap in your CV, in your resume, that you have to be like NDA. I can't say what I was doing for those 4 or 5 years. Like like, again, like, it's a thing in the industry. You would expect a hiring person to be like, okay, I understand, but also, am I going to hire somebody who I don't know what the fuck they've been doing for the last 5 years? Or am I going to hire someone who I do know what they've been doing for the last 5 years? Like, you know, it doesn't work out well for them. I feel like if the game gets cancelled, you should be able to put out your work. Like, you cancel the game, like, you're not exactly going to be hurting the studio at that point because they had no intention of putting the game out. Anyway, memories of nights and weekends, like this one is particularly bad. Memories of nights and weekends spent in studio crunch instead of at home with loved ones. Sacrifices that felt worth it at the time only add to the pain retrospectively once their object ceases to exist. So this is like saying that you might have put off time with your loved ones, time with your friends, crunching, the expectation that you'd get to rest afterwards, but also the expectation that all this extra work you were doing would be worth it. Again, the corporate side of video games very much takes advantage of developers' passion for making games, for making art, for making things for people to play and enjoy and experience and so on. So getting them to crunch might seem like it should be a really difficult thing to do. It's not. Sometimes they do it to themselves. I know personally, just working on personal projects, I've pushed myself to be working well into the late hours. I'm not even getting paid for that. Like, once you get passionate about something, it can be difficult to turn it off. So taking advantage of that is like kind of sociopathic. There really should be people, management should be able to step in and go, I understand you're passionate about it, but you will burn yourself out doing it this way. And also, we're going to cancel the game, lol. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of, should have probably cancelled the game, Mind's Eye co-CEO alleges €1 million was spent in sabotaging the game. No, I think however much you spent on developing the game sabotaged the game. Anyway, so this is Mark Gerhardt, alleges that they have caught the guys who sabotaged Mind's Eye. Is it the people in the room with us right now? Is it you? Is it Leslie Benzies, who was in the Epstein files and is now no longer CEO of Mind's Eye by the looks of things? We've caught the guys who've been sabotaging Mind's Eye. It's apparently a very big American company paying off a bunch of influencers. Yeah, that's why. That's what sabotaged Mind's Eye. Not just looking at the game. A smear campaign had a budget of over €1 million spent in 2025. The company had been paying several influencers, including one particular one who's currently in a legal case, 3 journalists, and allegedly, well, this is probably a bigger thing, Build a Rocket Boy employees. So he's alleging €1 million partially was spent to get developers to deliberately make the game shit. I don't... Okay. The fact that was even possible would suggest that maybe you aren't treating your developers very well. Anyway, these individuals will all be served in person. Criminal complaints shortly. Criminal charges are for espionage, sabotage, and criminal interference. This is the start of our comeback. Okay, bro. That's some high-level copium he's got there. Anyway, so he's alleging that Ritual Network effectively took money to deliberately shit on the game. Ritual Network being like an influencer support thing. Ritual Network as a creator support platform is not involved in the matter you reference. We are not aware of any legitimate legal action involving Ritual Network and have not been provided with any evidence supporting these claims, any suggestion, yada yada yada. This guy's full of shit, basically. Gerard went on to say that the way we win as a business is through the quality of our games, through the love, the passion that we put into Mind's Eye, and that's why I'm suing everybody, including my own employees. Quality of our games. By suing the people who make the games. Okay. We're gonna put some of these names into our upcoming spy mission. This is the mission that was going to have Agent 47 in it before IO Interactive pulled out of publishing. And I feel like if you actually put their names in there, isn't that like slander, libel, something? I feel like it's not going to help your ongoing lawsuit. Anyway, let's tell the community the story before it even plays out in court, so you know I think this is us not being the victim. One, you're going to prejudice a jury by doing that. So probably don't do that. But also, it's not really going to help. That's not really going to help. Anyway, then it transpires. How did they allegedly find out that employees were doing it? Oh, it's because they've got like a fucking panopticon thing built into their company software that they didn't tell anybody about. Builder Rocket Boy had recently rolled out an enhanced cybersecurity software to employees without their knowledge. This software tracks user activity, including keystrokes and screen behavior, in an attempt to track insider threats. My hole. That is an attempt to track union things. That is an attempt to spy on your employees without their knowledge. And tracking their keystrokes, that's a keylogger. Pretty sure that's illegal. So if any of your employees, again, if the employees knew this was happening, they, may not have done personal things on the work machine. Now, like, yes, you shouldn't be doing personal things on your work machine, but it's only so many hours in the day. Sometimes you have to do it. That means they now potentially have password credentials, credit card numbers, any of these kind of things in the keystrokes. And if they have the keystrokes and the screen at the same time, then they can match them. This is really bad. This is really, really, really bad, especially because you didn't tell them you were doing it. I know there's been a rollout of some enhanced cybersecurity software that I think has caused quite a lot of confusion, upset, perhaps even mistrust. I know there's been a rollout of some enhanced cybersecurity software. You're the fucking CEO. You did it. You fucking rolled it out. I think it goes without saying that we can trust 99.9% of this business. The problem is it's the 1%. Well, that maths is 100.9% there. Okay, anyway. That's the problem. If it's really only 1%, or in this case 0.01%, this seems like fucking overkill. No. And also, if it's 0.001%, that seems like that's one person at best. Gerhardt added that he hopes the cybersecurity measures can be removed from employees' computers within the next 3 months, but he takes full responsibility for how the software was rolled out and poorly communicated. Not for using the software, just for not telling people about it. And he hopes they can be removed? Again, you're the CEO, bro. Just remove it. Cool. Anyway, I'm going to move on. So this is an article. This is going to be one of your long reads for this week. Now, this is technically paywalled. It's also why I'm not going through the whole thing. But I do think it's an interesting article, and it lays out a lot of things that people have been saying about Epstein's involvement in microtransactions, for instance, but also things like Gamergate, also things like co-opting incels to become Nazis, effectively. All of these kind of things. And it's the Epstein files reveal what powerful people see in video games: profit, coercion, and control. So there's a lot of talk about some emails between him and Bobby Kotick, and they were talking effectively about microtransactions and how they can indoctrinate children into the economy, into finance, into buying and selling, and all of this kind of stuff, and also making it okay because they grew up with it, right? So of course it's fine. If anyone who's been through therapy, just because you grew up with it doesn't mean it was okay. And if you talk to people who were playing video games before microtransactions were a thing, they can also tell you that, no, this is not okay. There's also talks about like the dark patterning stuff where the games are designed in such a way to addict you to it, to get you to accidentally buy things. All of these kind of things sort of being traced all the way back to this conversation. Now, again, this is alleged. It's just one email. Activision didn't exactly start microtransactions. They had been there in mobile games for a while. and I'm not even sure it was the first game to have them in console space or PC space, but it's clear that the same type of people had that idea. The same kind of people who think because they have money and power that they can just do whatever they want. They can just influence the world, just make it the way they want it to. And also, they're fucking idiots talking about it through email. But anyway, these are the kind of people. Pedophiles who also think microtransactions are a good thing, and also recognized how they could leverage incels into starting Gamergate and then effectively start the online chuds, 4chan /Paul, like all these kind of things. Anyway, this article goes into it. I'm not a writer, and I'm obviously not going to be good at... I struggle to get my own words out sometimes. Again, this is Aftermath. It is paywalled. But if it's the first article you go to that website, you should be able to read it. I'm a little bit not sure how they feel about going through their articles like this on the internet, so that's why I'm not going through it. But I'd encourage you to read it, but it's infuriating. Anyway, we're going to move on. Speaking of infuriating, Larian isn't involved with the Baldur's Gate show. Fans are not happy. I genuinely don't think anyone can trump our writers. So we moved into community things. Probably should have mentioned that. Community things, I don't think I ever differentiated between industry bullshit and community things, but industry bullshit is stuff that happens in the industry that is bullshit. That's industry bullshit. Community things are things that happen outside of the video game industry that aren't specifically about video games, but they involve video games in some way. This being Baldur's Gate 3, HBO were effectively planning to make a TV show out of it, and effectively none of the people who made the game are actually involved. Anyway, the TV show is alleged to take place after the events of Baldur's Gate 3, because, super interesting, that part, not the events of the game or anything. And will essentially canonize one of the endings, or multiple endings. If you've played the game and have played it more than once all the way through, you'll know the endings are quite different. Lots of different things can change, and all small changes small decisions you've made and decisions you haven't made throughout the game can have drastic changes on the ending. It is a very, very interactive game. So the idea that they're going to pick a canonical one is dumb. And why they're setting it after Baldur's Gate 3, Anyway, headed by showrunner for The Last of Us TV show, it's Craig Mazin. Now, from what I have heard and what I'm seeing on social media, I haven't watched The Last of Us show, because I don't like the game, and I don't see why I would like the TV show. From what I've heard, this has been met with people not happy. Even people who don't like Baldur's Gate are like, good God, really? This guy? This is the guy you picked? This is your king? Anyway, Larian Studios won't be involved in the show at all. They got like a tacit phone call to basically say it was happening, and lol, that's it. Obviously, Larian don't own the IP to Baldur's Gate. Hasbro own it as part of Dungeons & Dragons, because Hasbro owned Dungeons & Dragons. So this is a deal between HBO and Hasbro, as opposed to a deal between HBO and Larian. So Larian have no say. However, they are advocating for the writers at the studio that brought these characters to life. So they are hoping that some of the writers will get to write for the TV show, but don't see that happening. Anyway, the publishing director at Larian, Michael Dowse. My only hope is that they get both the credit deserved as the writers. The credit deserved and the characters are represented at the same level as the game. I genuinely don't think anyone can trump our writers. And he basically goes on to say that he shares the doomerism, but, it doesn't have to be all doom. They might knock it out of the bag. Anyway, everybody else, not so much. Whole house mad. Both fans and haters are like, what the fuck are you doing? somebody saying that they're just gonna corporatize everybody. You know, Will doesn't say anything because he's black. Oops. Go backwards. No, don't go to Twitter, thank you. You know, Astarion is just a sex object. Lysel only wears like a bikini, pretty much. Shadowheart is vaguely bi, but not really. Somebody's sneaking out of headquarters with Gale up his ass so they can't butcher him. Okay, good stuff. Baldur's Gate fans being normal as usual. The only way it could work as a show is if all the characters are original and none of the past characters in the game. We'll get onto that in a second. Does it want to be in the HBO show? Everybody hated that. Nobody's going to like this. Corporate Tav. Tav is the... If you don't know, Tav is the player character's default name. So nobody wants Corpo Tav, basically. Why is it post-canon? Nobody's going to be happy with whatever canon they chose because it's not their character. Like, everybody's fucking dead, basically. I sentence you to Craig Mazin adapting 2 of your favorite games. Yeah, okay. So, people not particularly happy. So yeah, like, somebody's pointing out there that, like, why bother setting it after Baldur's Gate 3? No one will actually be happy with any decision you make. A lot of the characters have reached the end of their arc. Story-wise, there's not really anywhere for them to go. I mean, yeah, you could force it, but not really. And the point that this writer makes, and that I would agree with, is Dungeons & Dragons fucking huge. It's a massive universe that you can pull from. So many different characters, so many different things, so many different worlds, so many different settings, so many different storylines. Any amount of them you could pull from. Why this one? And clearly it's the cynical side of things, is that Baldur's Gate 3 is popular and they're just gonna use the name and not really do anything else. It sounds like a cynical one that misunderstands why people like the game in the first place, which is because of how interactive how you can make it your story. Only to turn it now into a streamlined corpo thing. Dungeons & Dragons is such an expansive franchise that focusing specifically on the events and characters of Baldur's Gate 3 is such a limiting framework. This wouldn't be the first time an HBO adaptation seemed to carry a weird amount of disdain for the source material and the audience, which again, I assume that's The Last of Us. I haven't watched it. I have a weird amount of disdain for the game itself, so I'd imagine I would enjoy the TV show. But again, like some other people have pointed out, like they have Honor Among Thieves, the film. Just fucking make a sequel to it. People are dying for a sequel for it. Or not even a sequel, just make another Dungeons & Dragons film. Again, there are so many characters and settings and cities and stories and however many things you could do. Just to focus on this one just feels like you just don't understand Dungeons & Dragons. And the fact that it's not lost on me that it's Hasbro who are doing this as well, because they also don't really understand what they own. Anyway, before I get too mad, let's move on. France gives 28 Claire Obscure developers a knighthood and says video games have reached a new level of recognition. Well, I would argue they were always there, but fine. Anyway, Knights of the Order of Arts and Letters, an honor previously bestowed on other video game luminaries like Eiji Aonuma, Legend of Zelda producer, Shigeru Miyamoto, Super Mario creator, and Michel Ancel, Rayman designer. You might think one of them is standing out. Well, you gotta remember, with a name like Michel Ancel, he's French. There's a reason he's there. So Minister for Culture saying that they wish to distinguish today was not an individual journey, but the brilliant success of a collective, which is why practically the entire team, in fact, I think it is the entire team, at a knighthood. The full speech is there. It's very nice. It's very flowery, but if you like put away the cynical side of yourself for a minute, it does say a lot of nice things about like video games, video game culture, and what have you. Anyway, I'm gonna move on. So we'll leave Neo to play in the background. Anyway, that was your news for the 2nd to the 8th of February 2026. So yeah, the Nintendo Direct was kind of disappointing. It was pretty much almost all ports. A couple of games, Orbitals, the Millennium Tales, both getting sort of release dates. I mean, the Millennium Tales did get a release date, but Orbitals just got a kind of release window. There were a handful of games there that I was gonna talk about, but they're like, I'm not actually that interested in them. Like that dinosaur stealth game reminded me a lot of, I can't remember the name of it. It's a PS3 game where you play a woman who has to escort this young girl, and the young girl has some kind of zombie immunity thing, but if you stray too far away from her, you become a zombie. I don't remember the name of the game. It was effectively another stealth game, but it's a stealth game and an escort game. It's like, could you have picked two worse things to people I hate? Now, I like stealth games, but I like stealth games where you can fight back. I don't like stealth games where you're always the mouse and never the cat. Anyway, that's what the dinosaur game reminded me of. I forget what Tokyo Scramble, I think is what it was called. I don't remember what the woman and the girl is called. I think it's like one name. It's like a person's name, but I don't remember what it is. Anyway, yeah, that looks shit. There's another one, Tokyo Xanadu, that kind of mixed a Metroidvania and a third-person arena fighter. It kind of looked okay. I like the idea of mixing the two of them, but the game itself just looks all right, so I wasn't really gonna bother talking about it too much. Horizon Hunter's Gathering instead of Horizon Hunter Gatherers, which I feel like would have lent into the kind of resetting of civilization. We're kind of going back to the Stone Age, but there's also robots. I feel like, no? Okay. Yeah, whatever. Another live service. Horizon Concord. Like, what was it? There's some comment on one of the YouTube trailers. It was like Horizon Zero Interest or something like that. Horizon Zero Purchase. Like, there were a lot of puns basically based on it. Anyway, I thought Horizon Zero Interest was a very funny one. I did genuinely lol at that one. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. Like, Steel Frontiers, I can kind of see somewhat working. I really don't know where they're going with this one. I really just think if you wanted to make like a different genre but also have it be Horizon, then Monster Hunter's right there. I feel like it fits in really, really well. Anyway, what else was there? Bunch of new releases. I still haven't finished the original Neo, so it's probably going to take me a while before I get to Neo 3. Again, I think I've mentioned this before. I've been toying with doing like a Mazo Core series. Like the Souls, playing a lot of Souls games and Souls likes and so on. Just because if I don't have some kind of plan to play them, I won't do it. You know, I'll just play some other games. And I kind of got the bug for it now because I'm playing Demon Souls at the moment. Again. It's a friend of mine. Friend of mine wanted to play it, but they're used to mouse and keyboard, and it's an like PlayStation exclusive. They never use a controller, and if you've ever seen someone who's never used a controller before, you'll know that sometimes you need to take over. Anyway, so I've effectively been playing it, and it's been a play and watch situation. But yeah, I've got the bug again for these kind of games, and I never finished Neo. And Neo, I always found Neo to be really, really hard, like way harder than the Souls games. So I don't know. I don't know if I want to make it a series, because when we did Elden Ring, I got real fucking angry. At that game. Fuck you, Melania. Jesus Christ. You added like 6 years to my life. Anyway, I'm going to head off. I'll consider in the back of my head whether or not I want to do that. I mean, I still haven't really gotten back into streaming yet, so it's probably not the best game to start with. Anyway, I'm going to head off. Have a good rest of your day, or whatever it is you're doing, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.